All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
We're on with a live show on this 4th of July weekend. Hello, everyone. Let the last sparkler be extinguished. The last celebration of vanishing freedom end. And we are on to discuss a teetering Joe Biden, an aggressive, a pugnacious, smack-talking Donald Trump. Pugnacious, ding word right out of the chute. Yeah. You know, sometimes you just step in it, as you know. Albert is here, the commissioner.
Albert, thank you.
And producer of the show. And Kim,
Kim, how are you?
Rides herd over all breaking events and will watch news events that relate to national, international, and California news. It is hot as Hades in California, everyone. Kelly Malloy, big shout out.
Big
How about
shout
a
out.
$10 super sticker right out of the chute? I mean, I want to stay in the chute. That's how, right out of the chute, everything's getting so good. Why leave the chute? Romania Animal Rescue Inc. They do such good work based on everything I've seen on their website. How about a super sticker for $20?
Big shout out.
Wow, love that. Thank you. Romania Animal Rescue Inc. Boy, give your animals a break. Remember when the pavement is heated under these kinds of conditions? Their little feet are burned. So when you take your dog for a walk, it's burning the bottom of the doggie's feet. Remember that. So remember it. I'm going to tell you one thing. They have those little shoes for dogs. You know, Albert, you guys have dogs. Now, have you considered the shoes?
No shoes for our dogs. Just stay inside when it's too hot. So that's usually what's the... I know a lot of the downtown areas. I know people a lot in San Francisco like to have the shoes, maybe for different reasons, for whatever's on the ground over there.
I once put shoes on my Siberian Husky, and she just stood in a corner and wouldn't walk, wouldn't move. She was like, nope, not having the shoes.
Oh. Our dog still has PTSD, says S.J. Lola, is it? San Jose, probably Lola.
From the fireworks.
Our poor dog still has PTSD after last night's
July 4th is very tough on the dogs.
Yeah.
It is just a
I have senior dogs now, but when they were in their prime, they hated July 4th. They're just a little, they're just a little too senior now. But
yeah. Sorry about that. It's so true. And so many dogs are lost during this. We talked about it before. I mean, there's so many options besides sending off these rockets. You know, you can do drones and you can do all manner of really spectacular displays without having to send off these rockets. But the bang, bang, bang and the pop, pop, pop is what people like as well. Harry Magnan said, I forgot, is it a 5th on the 4th or a 4th on the 5th? Still at the Red Jack Saloon trying to figure it out.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to you, Harry.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, well, there's a reason this place is fun.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
The Red Jack Saloon, where the owners live above the saloon. I still feel as though it's one of the great narratives discovered from the old KGO radio show that we continue onto this show. Great relationship with them, and they're great supporters. And you can order a martini and a little piece of whatever you order there at the Red Jack. They spin off to the show. They usually send us something every month, you know. Yeah. And I think Kim's you've got a drink too, don't you?
It's the Kimikaze.
No, the Kimikaze.
What?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Lucy, thank you. Lucy McAllister, a super sticker for $20. Wow, Lucy
Big
McAllister.
shout out.
You as you know, Lucy, you are I forget now, Albert, is she tied as my favorite or is she actually my favorite McAllister?
I think she's your favorite.
Yeah, that's probably it. I seldom would
Yeah.
Lucy
it's
McAllister.
1A and 1B, but we're not going to specify who's A or B.
Yeah, 1A and 1B, exactly right. I'm not going to cry, but I do want to recognize them.
I've made my peace with it.
Thank you for the super sticker for $20. Really, really cool. We've got a lot to do on the show. Michael Shure will join us in the second hour. We will talk about the political realities for Joe Biden. It seems as though life just is working out for Donald Trump. It's funny, though, when I read the comments, and I tell you, I read all the comments in our videos that we drop, etc. The right in America feels really aggrieved. They see it. I mean, to me, it's so laughable. How can you feel as though it's the tyranny of the left? You have the Supreme Court. They rolled back Roe. They're bringing religiosity back into lives. That's the next step. The Federalist Society essentially is going to be controlling America through the courts in the next handful of years. You're all positioned and poised to completely transform this country. You've seen the Supreme Court confer on the presidency, which you will likely ascend to. I mean, at this point, Trump is the favorite to become president again. It's bizarre and wrong, but that is the reality. You are poised then to take on this unitary executive power, which has just been, as I say, conferred by a Supreme Court in excruciatingly detailed rulings that suggest that the president can do any number of lawless things. He can be the prime mover of any number of violent, lawless things and be completely immune, legally immune. So how from that do you see yourselves as aggrieved parties? But they do, But they are ready to ride. And now that Steve Bannon, who is a mouthpiece for the right, has been jailed, even if it's a temporary 3-month thing in Danbury, Connecticut, it's a clarion call for them to all begin to armor up. And that's what you hear from right-wing organizations. I sent you the Heritage Foundation guy, Albert.
Yes, let me go grab it.
Yeah, this is pretty. I was going to play it for Michael Shure, but I'm kind of on a little bit of a jag right now. But let me just. I'll move on, and maybe I'll play it for sure. You have to hear it, and I'll play it in its entirety. It's about 2 minutes long. But meantime, let me just tell you what's on the show. Friday Fabulous Florida is supposed to be great. Our Friday Fabulous Florida scouts have indicated to me that Albert has curated an extraordinary Friday Fabulous Florida today. So that'll be bottom of the hour. If you're new to the show, we feature on Fridays news from Florida. That's a little in the offbeat category.
Yeah, they seem to have their act together last week, so they're back on their usual Florida this week.
I see. So. Good. Yeah. And then Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, will finish off the show. I want to hear about with this new Beverly Hills Cop. Eddie Murphy's back with Beverly Hills Cop after whatever it is. How long has it been? 30 years since Axel Foley hit the streets of Beverly Hills. So we'll talk to the Culture Blaster, Michael Snyder. That's all still ahead on the show. I do also want to just acknowledge that there is news from abroad, of course.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The new government in Britain. Am I right?
Yeah.
Kim, you may know more about this than I do.
Yep.
The UK election, the Labour Party, which was really out of power for 15 years, I think, they have regained power.
Rishi Sunak is out and Keir Starmer is in.
Keir Starmer, former human rights lawyer and prosecutor, the new prime minister. We'll learn more in the days ahead, and to whatever degree you are interested, you, the audience, I will bring somebody on who really knows British politics. I know a lot of British politicians, journalists, I should say. So happy to get that organized if there is interest. But there's certainly enough going on in this country to keep you occupied, so you may be more interested in that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
A lot of pressure on Uncle Joe. There is a lot of explaining. I had a cold. I was jet lagged. I got to get more sleep. But it really works around what we all see. Now, as I've told you, and I'll say it again, I would take Joe Biden on a hospital gurney for 4 years before I want Donald Trump in there.
Right.
And that's one of the problems. It's been such a focus on Joe Biden that we lose Donald Trump, the danger and the specter of a changed America in a brutal way. We lose it in all of the talk of Biden. These are weird political times, and honestly, the way you come across in media isn't insignificant. So let's give Biden all the credit for having made some transformative moves as president at a divided time when you did not have Congress. You had essentially to work across the aisle. He really did do that. And his landmark infrastructure bill provides for all of these different things that Trump talked about, but Biden actually did. So I'll give him credit for that, for the CHIPS Act, for the veterans, et cetera. I mean, there's a laundry list of things that this administration has successfully done. Having said that, this comes to, unfortunately, how you come across. That's why the media part of it has nothing to do with administering and being president. We all know that Donald Trump can't administer his way out of a paper bag. He's awful as a manager. His administration was full of corruption. 3 cabinet officials resigned under clouds of corruption. And the rest of them were largely either incompetent or they were lobbyists who were put in place in the various agencies that they had been suing before Trump won. So the notion somehow that Donald Trump can manage America or manage anything is absurd. 4 bankruptcies. He's a failed real estate tycoon. The reality is, if you read the David K. Johnston books, that this is a guy who's just failing up. But again, because of the distraction that is Joe Biden, we don't focus on these things that I've just mentioned. And so it's how you come across. And Trump is a con man, and he just keeps it coming. The fire hose of rhetoric, of verbiage, of lies, of stuff he's just made up, of things he's taken credit for, of things he said people are telling him. And so it's effed up, but that's an effective way to win the presidency. Apparently, he's done it once, and it looks like he's going to do it again. So here's what's happening on the Democratic side of the ball. Increasingly, wealthy donors are saying, I'm not going to support with my money Joe Biden any longer. They're encouraging him to drop out. The Disney heiress and other wealthy Democratic donors say they won't finance the party until Joe Biden drops out. So they're cutting off funds to all Democrats. This is their way of applying pressure. Biden, of course, as you know, has doubled down. He said, I have no intention of withdrawing from the race. And major donors, I mean, I'm talking about millions and millions of dollar donors. Those people who write those checks, among them Abigail Disney, the granddaughter of Roy Disney, who co-founded the Disney company. She's funded for years Democratic efforts. And she's saying no more until Biden drops out.
Wow. When the Disneys are taking a stand, you know you got a problem, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, MAGA Mickey is...
2024!
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. I intend... Mickey, the official Mickey, has taken no official stance on the race. I intend to stop any contributions to the party unless and until they replace Biden at the top of the ticket, she said. This is realism, not disrespect. Biden is a good man and has served his country admirably, but the stakes are far too high. If Biden does not step down, the Democrats will lose. Of that, I'm absolutely certain. The consequences for the loss will be genuinely dire. She's not wrong. Yeah. And so there is a panic across the Democratic Party in general, because this is, sadly, important to winning elections. You need money. You need money for staff and administration that gets the vote out. You need money, obviously, for media buys. You need these things cost. In Hollywood, Damon Lindelof calls on Biden to drop out. Who's he? Damon, who I've actually played cards with a couple of times, he's a very nice guy. Lifelong Democrat, he says, and I love my complicated, glorious country. I'm not writing this anonymously because I'm asking others in positions of influence to do as I am doing. I don't know if I have to say it's going to matter, but I know what my eyes and my ears and my heart tell me. I've been asleep at the wheel, and it's time to wake the F up. And he wrote this piece in Deadline Hollywood calling on President Biden to drop out. Now, I was just going to get back to who he is, but you should Google him, Kim. You can, or Albert.
Google it.
One of the creators of Lost. He has a ton of high-profile television shows and films. He's a very powerful, creative force in Hollywood. And more to the point, he's a big Democratic donor, and he leads that group of Hollywooders who, again, there he is.
Big money, yeah.
Yeah, who dump big money and who lead a charge to support Joe Biden. And that was the case until that debate. Barry Diller, the media magnate, who is now, he is unapologetic. We have an excellent vice president. He believes that Kamala Harris should be in the first position. Where's the Diller piece here, Albert? He had a couple of quotes. Barry Diller said no when asked if he and his wife Diane von Furstenberg will continue to support Biden.
People are backing away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a scenario that we'll discuss with Michael Shure, but this matters. This matters. Meantime, Donald Trump...
I just put another link in there for you, Mark, for Barry Diller.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, here it is, the Ankler. Right, thank you. I mean, this is a guy who's, a real Democrat. And now you add him to the list that I was just giving you of high-profile Hollywood figures and business people. Barry Diller is a media magnate. Mm-hmm. And there are a few. There's Barry Diller.
Diane von Furstenberg is very stylish. Look at her always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gave $100,000 to the president and the Democratic Party's joint super PAC for the general election. I think Jeffrey Katzenberg is still on board. But I mentioned Damon, the producer and showrunner. And when you actually talk to people, the Aspen Ideas Festival, the high-profile CEO of Endeavor, agent, if you want to think of him this way, Ari Emanuel, he also very down on Biden's possibilities. So what is Joe Biden saying? Well, what isn't he saying? Look, he's all that stuff that we've said before, right? Cold medicine, jet lag, and I need more sleep, and I'm going to stop scheduling events after 8 p.m. I mean, this is a guy who can't get out of his own way. Did you think that that's going to win with the general public?
When I saw that, it made me think of those old presidential commercials where the phone rings at 3 a.m. Who do you want in charge of your country? Because things happen in the presidency after 8 in the evening. At 2 in the morning, the missiles could start flying on the other side of the world. So, I mean, that's great that you're going to go to bed early, but you better be able to wake up in the middle of the night and have it together, my friend.
Well, the reality is that the number of times that that's going to happen is really small, but what Kim is saying is exactly what everybody's thinking. So no one really focuses on the reality, which is, dude, they don't wake you up in the middle of the night much with stuff. I mean, Donald Trump was on the golf course. He didn't come down from the residence until 11 a.m. Okay, wow. Remember that. Okay, and then it was like an hour that he met. He didn't read any briefing materials. And then Donald Trump went back to catch what was it, The Five? He had to be back, to watch The Five and some other Fox show that he was, he wanted to watch. He was a golfer and a TV watcher. That's who Donald Trump was. So it's been a while since you had a president who was really keeping the lights on late at night and up first thing in the morning. So the schedule, in a weird way, doesn't bother me, but in another way, I don't know why you would say it. I mean, this is my point. I get it. Do you think Donald Trump says, look, I'm looking forward to starting my day at 11 a.m. I'll meet with everybody for an hour. Of course, I haven't read any of the briefing materials. But then I'm going to have a big lunch. I love the kitchen at the White House. And then I'll get in some golf. That's really what my daily routine will be. Do you think he would say that? No, he's good. There's no president in the history of this country that worked as hard as I have. And I have a knowledge of terrorism and of domestic affairs that no other president. Many people are saying they are amazed by how much I know. I mean, that's the crap that Donald Trump says. What does Joe Biden say? I'm going to cut down. I'm going to get to bed earlier. Gosh, I think I'm doing too much. It's just not the message you want to send. I get it. Dude, you're right. You need to get to sleep sooner. You need to take care of yourself, whatever it may be. But don't tell the world that's your plan. I'm going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I've decided. Really, you want to say that? You're trying to be president. Well, but Tuesday, Thursday, Kamala has really stepped into the role. Don't say it. So I see this all, honestly, as a preamble to him dropping out. I think he's a proud man. I think he's worked hard for this job. And I think that it's also very hard to let go of this job. But there you go. Thank you. What is Spank saying? FDR had extreme physical health problems, and he won a war on 2 continents. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. And I really like this comment from Spank for another reason, because FDR covered, even though everybody knew, covered his infirmities such that they weren't on full display. He struggled to stand, to walk. I mean, he really couldn't walk. He was, in those braces and was always helped along. But let's get smart about things. I'd also suggest that this media environment really makes it harder for you as a candidate to cover much. I'm really tired of the DNC choosing who we can elect. I agree with you, Judy, and I think we saw it in the case of Bernie Sanders when they didn't allow Bernie to really have access to the superdelegates against Hillary Clinton. I mean, that might seem like ancient history to you, but not to me. This media environment, you need somebody who comes across well. You need some vitality, and I'm sorry, but Joe on his best day does not. Vilma, when the phone rings at 3 a.m. in the morning, I certainly don't want Donald Trump to answer. Exactly. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's such a fair point that Donald Trump can't find his butt with both hands. But then he'll tell you how great he is. But no one is focused on that right now because you've got a president who is doddering. And it's unacceptable. And I was a Biden. My view was, look at what the man has done.
Yeah.
His first term was really transformational in so many ways. I'm so proud of what he did. And he did really bridge some of the gaps in a highly partisan environment. But now I would say, I'm sorry. The expiration date is past. And I'm ready to roll the dice. I think if you don't, and this is where Abigail Disney is right, you will lose. You will, if you run this guy, you will lose. And by now it's just been stated and stated and stated because it's true. The stakes are insanely high. Yep. So smash the like button like a boss, if you would. We need the thumbs up. We've moved over to YouTube. I'm excited to be here. I really am excited, everybody, that you can see my cadaverous pallor every day. It's very, you're probably wondering, how can I get that ghost-like look that Mark Thompson has? Well, we haven't come out with any products yet, but right now it's just something you have to enjoy via YouTube. So I am excited, though, that, and by the way, speaking of cadaverous looks. We'll talk more about the whole situation with Joe Biden with Michael Shure. Before I completely get off Joe Biden, the Goop, Sanjay Gupta weighed in. And he wrote a lengthy piece, or an editorial. He wants a cognitive exam. Isn't that what he wants, Producer Albert? You have the video?
Yeah, that is correct. And we do have
Here's a little bit of the Goop talking about what he wants for Joe Biden.
CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, is calling on President Joe Biden to undergo cognitive testing and share his results with the American people after what he calls, quote, concerning behavior at last week's presidential debate. Sanjay Gupta is joining us right now. Okay, so Dr. Sanjay Gupta, I mean, what provoked you to do this?
Well, Fred, good morning. First of all, this is not a political essay. It's a medical one. And I think a lot of the things that, people saw at that debate weren't necessarily new, but they were sustained. And I think more pronounced than what we had seen in the past. And I think that's what really provoked the essay. I think that the question really being raised is, have we been looking at episodes, intermittent episodes, or is this reflective of some sort of deeper underlying condition? And that's what I really wanted to get at. Let me tell you a few of the things that specifically jumped out. And I will also mention, as you're looking at some of these specific signs that neurologists noted, that after the debate, I got a lot of calls, texts, emails from my neurology and brain science colleagues from around the world, frankly, sort of highlighting some of these things. But if you take a look, slow response time, I think we saw that, sort of in a sustained fashion. Definitive word retrieval mix-ups, rambling, sometimes confused speech, reduced voice volume as well, and reduced facial movements. And these things can all be connected. We often think of cognition simply being memory, but if someone has an underlying movement disorder, for example, that can actually affect cognition in the sense that people may have more flattened affect, face, and not really be speaking as quickly or as loudly. Now, if he were my patient, if he were my dad, frankly, I would want to get more testing done, cognitive testing and more detailed movement disorder testing as well. Now, you've heard, Fred, what the White House has said about this. They say, look, it was a bad night for him. He had late nights. He had jet lag. He had a cold. We heard he wasn't taking any medications for that. And those things can cause temporary brain fog, if you will. But again, this idea, are we looking at episodes of something, or is this a condition that should be more fully investigated? And it really seems to be more of the latter.
Okay,
good. So thank you, Albert, for that. So what I was curious about was, and this is whether I've always sort of looked at this, maybe you have as well. I was curious as to how often is he checking out? Like, I'm going to give you a senior moment. I really am. I mean, look, there are plenty of people who are old. This has been my position for years because it's true. There are plenty of people who are old. You can't look at the age on their driver's license and make a determination as to how competent they are. It's just not the case that older people all of a sudden age out of competence. You can have a senior moment as an aging person, if you will, an 80-year-old, even an 85-year-old, and you can still be insanely good when you're not having a senior moment. And senior moments don't last forever.
There are people in their 40s who walk into a room and can't and forget why, right?
Of course, that's true too. I mean, and again, please understand, I should say, that I'm not trying to enable some narrative for Joe Biden. I've just told you how I feel about this thing. But I also was curious as to exactly how often these various things, which look really bad when Sanjay Gupta lays them all out. I mean, I wouldn't put it on a dating profile that, that you have any of those things on that list. But I was curious how often they manifest themselves, right? So this in the LA Times just today, and it comes from 6 different reporters who are contributing to this piece. So in other words, there was a collective journalism involved. President Biden's conduct behind closed doors in the Oval Office, on Air Force One, and in meetings around the world is described in the same dual way by those who regularly see him in action. He is often sharp and focused, but he also has moments. particularly later in the evening when his thoughts seem jumbled and he trails off mid-sentence or seems confused. Sometimes he doesn't grasp the finer points of policy details. He occasionally forgets people's names, stares blankly, and moves slowly. Biden's occasional struggles with focus may not be unusual for someone his age. But with the 81-year-old Biden seeking another 4 years in the White House, the moments when he's off his game have taken on a fresh resonance after his disastrous debate performance, they point out. So, in private, they say he really is the same as in public. The way Biden acts in private, according to regular observers, often tracks how he comes off publicly. In both settings, he can be commanding one day and halting another. A day after the debate, his voice at a North Carolina rally was forceful, his eyes alert, his delivery confident. I give you my word as a Biden. I would not be running again if I did not believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. Well, let me say something about that right now. And again, I think this cake is baked. I think he's going to have to baby step his way out. And we'll talk to Michael Shure about what the timing might be. My dad just passed away. 2 weeks ago, was it? Something like that?
Yeah.
My dad was, I'm going to say, 20 times smarter than Joe Biden. He was brilliant. I mentioned on this show that an award-winning economist at the World Bank told his son, that guy is the smartest guy I've ever met. He's talking about my father. Toward the end of his life, he got COVID. He was hospitalized, and it messed with his brain, and he started to lose a step. And he lost 2 steps, and so on. But I'm talking about mental acuity, right? Mm-hmm. And I asked him, because this goes to the, I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe in all my heart and soul I can do this. He was planning a lecture. My dad was a lecturer and academician toward the end of his life. Before that, he was a constitutional lawyer. Wrote the Constitution for Guam and Puerto Rico, I think. You think
Wow.
I'd know that for sure, but
That's really cool.
Yeah, so he's they call him the Thomas Jefferson of Guam. But anyway,
my God, I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, so my point is my dad was a ninja, okay? He was an intellectual ninja. And, Shakespeare, sports, theater, politics. He was amazing. I mean, really incredible. But I'm making a point about his confidence in his mental acuity. So this brilliant man who got COVID, my father, as he's preparing this lecture, he was having trouble remembering the stories that he was lecturing on. Uh-oh. Like I asked him, what's the plot of this? And I would sit there, and he wouldn't really be able to take me through it. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, I said, hey, Dad, do you think you've lost a step maybe mentally through everything, the hospital and all that stuff? He said, I don't really think so. He said, I've heard other people say maybe I have. And he said, maybe I have. I don't know. He said, but I don't feel as though I've lost a step. And now back to Joe Biden, because my dad had lost a step, way more than a step. And he was coming from a way higher mountaintop intellectually than Joe Biden. But Joe Biden is a brilliant politician. And again, I give him immense credit for what he has done. An extraordinary 3.5 years. Transformative is the word I would use. When it comes to environmental policy, when it comes to infrastructure policy, no, we didn't get everything we wanted, but we got a lot. Navigating the Medicare negotiation on drugs, and yet on stage, you couldn't even take credit for it.
Yep.
I mean, there was so much to go after Trump on. In this very important television moment, he locked up, and I think now he's lost a couple of steps. And when you ask him, do you think you've lost a couple of steps? I think he answers like my dad. No, I don't. I don't think I've lost a couple.
Do you think it's because the people who can't admit that they've lost a few steps can't admit it to themselves, or because they seriously aren't good judges of whether they've lost it? Like they just don't understand that they've lost it.
I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter. I think my dad would answer honestly to me. He goes, yeah, I think I've lost a couple. You know what I mean? My dad would not, but there was not an arrogant bone in my dad's body. Mm-hmm. So that's it's recent, and I use it as a kind of a guide. But I think they just. I think Joe Biden believes he hasn't really lost it. I believe he can. He probably can govern. To be honest, as I've said, he could probably govern from an easy chair better than Donald Trump.
Sure.
Donald Trump's going to be on the golf course. He's going to be in a bathrobe for most of the morning, watching Fox and Friends. He's going to come down at 11 o'clock. He's not read anything. He's going to bluster and blow. He's going to jump on a helicopter, go to wherever, and go play golf. That's what he did. We've seen it. Meantime, his henchmen are going to ruin America. That's the way it's going to go down. All right. Can I just get some news headlines and then Florida, Albert? Am I way behind? I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're a little behind. If we could do a turbo news, as long as we have like 15-ish minutes for Florida, I think that should be good enough.
Okay, great. Turbo news and Friday Fabulous Florida next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. All right, President Biden is being interviewed today as concerns mount, as Mark said, over his mental fitness. ABC News will release the sit-down with the commander-in-chief tonight after he's faced intense criticism from both Republicans and fellow Democrats. Started with his shaky performance during the debate, where he lost his train of thought seemingly and displayed some strange speech patterns. Since then, critics have pointed to several other instances where President Biden seemed not to be in command either. 4th of July vacations expected to extend into the weekend as the TSA is not predicting a traveler rush until Sunday. Nearly 3 million airline passengers have been screened at airports around the country almost every day since the holiday rush kicked off. So, June jobs report looking better, many analysts predicted. The Labor Department's report out today shows the economy added 206,000 new jobs last month, better than the roughly 200,000 that was projected. Hurricane Beryl thrashing Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula as it moves closer towards southern Texas. Now a Category 2 hurricane, bringing winds clocked at 80 miles per hour, damaging waves, and a dangerous storm surge. It is expected to weaken, then gain strength when it moves over the Gulf of Mexico. So that should happen near southern Texas on Sunday night into Monday morning.
Oh, my God.
There's some containment being made in the battle against the Thompson fire in Northern California. CAL FIRE saying as of Thursday night, the fire still burns 3,500 acres with containment now near 10%. But Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency, allowing for federal assistance to provide critical resources there. At least 8 firefighters injured in this one, 4 structures destroyed. Speaking of hot weather, Sacramento County is ending water deliveries to homeless camps. They say that puts homeless people at risk as record temperatures hit that region. The county, Sacramento County, stopped delivering water to encampments on Monday when pandemic-related funds for the program that started in 2020 ended. So now, Camp Resolution is relying on community donations for water. The groups Democratic Socialists of America, Black and Brown Unity, and NorCal Resist are collecting water donations and supplies and distributing them throughout Sacramento County this week. The National Weather Service says temperatures are forecast to be 10 to 20 degrees above normal. Maybe not the best time to cut off water for the homeless. I don't know.
Oh, my God. It seems like it's a weird decision.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they ran out of money. They're like, okay, no water for you.
I guess when you run out of money, you run out of money. But,
That's it. Former U.S. Representative Jackie Speer says she is battling breast cancer.
Oh.
Former Congresswoman making the announcements on social media yesterday. She said the illness was detected early and that she had a successful lumpectomy procedure done on Tuesday. Former Congresswoman Speer represented parts of San Francisco and San Mateo counties in the House of Representatives from 2008 to last year. She's quite a career.
Yeah, her husband was a friend of mine, Steve Sierra, and he was killed in an accident on the streets of San Francisco, a car accident. And I went to, it's weird that she would be in the news. I just mentioned this as a personal aside because we went to Wimbledon together. Oh. We were at Wimbledon, and I watch a lot of Wimbledon and tennis, and it comes on, and I think of him all the time, every time it comes on, and then there she is in the news again. It was her first husband who, as I say, was killed in an automobile accident.
Police say no arrests were made after actor Danny Trejo was reportedly involved in a fight during a 4th of July parade in Sunlen, Tujunga. The fight was apparently sparked after Trejo's vintage car at the parade was hit by a water balloon. Is that going to hurt it? I don't think so. The Machete star confronted the people who tossed the balloon and a fight broke out. A video posted on social media shows several people trying to hold back the 80-year-old Trejo as he tries to...
Danny Trejo is 80 years old?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that right? Albert, will you check that? Danny Trejo is 80?
Google it.
Oh, my God. Show a picture of Danny Trejo, Albert, if you can, please.
We'll take a look at him.
Albert, darling, get a picture of Danny Trejo and check on his age, would you please?
Albert, thank you.
Yes.
But while we're doing that... Oh, here's a picture here coming. Yeah.
I mean,
I
don't know.
He is 80, but he's also looked probably like 75 for the past 20 years.
That is a fair point. I agree. He does. He's had some tough years for sure.
Don't throw water balloons at his vintage car. He takes it very seriously.
Damn straight, man.
Damage
cool.
that. No, not going to work out. The Santa Monica Pier, lastly, was all lit up in red, white, and blue, and it will be for the rest of the 4th of July weekend. It's called the Pacific Wheel. It's the world's only solar-powered Ferris wheel. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
It features 174,000 LED lights that'll create a 90-foot tall animated American flag, complete with several color patterns and transitions as well. So again, the Ferris wheel at the Santa Monica Pier will stay lit up like that for the rest of the weekend. I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool. I love that. Love that plan.
This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards, also open for the rest of the 4th of July weekend. And that's right, all the way through July 7th. And they've got their 2020 Estate Pinot that just came out, so it's a great time to go try that. They've got beer on tap at the winery. They've got the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red? I mean, they're doing it right at Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. 925-699-4576. That's the phone number. Or you can email Rich at Tenuta Vineyard, Tenuta vineyard.com. And you write or type, smash it with your iron rod. No. Immediate 10% off of your order across the board.
With your iron rod.
If you order a case of wine, that's 20% off. Yeah. So check out the website. It's TenutaWinery.com. TenutaWinery.com. And where you can look and see all the wines they have. They have like 17 reds and 14 whites. I mean, they have a lot of wine to offer. So, and again, huge event out at the Tenuta Winery all through the weekend. They're going to be open, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Look at this.
There's
Alan
a
Rossi
reason that this place is fun.
Of water balloon throwing trivia. This is impressive. This is why I love our audience. Alan says Barbara Boxer's car was hit by a water balloon in the early 80s at Larkspur on a 4th of July parade. Wow. Just like Danny Trejo's car. Wow. Thank you, Alan. Very good knowledge. I'm very impressed.
Did you really just do that?
Yeah.
Barbara Boxer once rode in the back of my uncle's old Mustang. He was a reporter for the Marin IJ, and his car was a reporter's car, which was notoriously covered with trash, like somebody lived in it. Like it was, I mean, papers everywhere and, boxes of stuff and food and like, I mean, because
the image is hideous.
It is. That's where you do your work. And he sees her, and she asks for a ride back from some event. And so there's Barbara Boxer crawling into my uncle's dirty old Mustang. Oh, my God.
Oh, that's great. That's a great story.
Yeah. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. Sorry about the car. You could just move those KFC packages to...
Exactly.
Right.
Like, you had Barbara Boxer? You're in that car?
In that car? Really?
Oh, I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
We are live on July 5th in the United States of America. Troubled as we are, we like talking about it. We like visiting and appreciate all of you for your support of the show on an ongoing basis. Many of you support through Patreon and PayPal. That's a great way to do it. And many of you jump on and give us super stickers and super chats, and that's a great way to do it. We literally wouldn't be here without you. And on days like today, when it's sort of like, could do the long weekend and just, record something or whatever, I feel as though I want you to know this is the commitment that I have to this, that I try to, even if I'm not feeling 100%, even if it's a holiday weekend, whatever, I want to be here for the commitment that we've made to this project. And I appreciate your commitment to it, and I want you to know that I'm committed to it. So smash it with your iron rod. The thumbs up matters in the YouTube
with your iron rod
algorithms that the kids do. It's all about the algo, you see. Well, he is my favorite young producer. He is my darling, my treasure, Albert, I'm talking about.
Albert, thank you.
I give him this responsibility weekly, and I want to say that he dispatches it with honor. And he's curated a fine version of Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
A dude in Florida calls 911. He has phony suicidal thoughts. And the reason that he calls 911 with these suicidal thoughts is because he knew that the cops would come and that he could hitch a free ride to Tampa, everybody.
Wow.
I mean...
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Yeah, he was hoping to get a free ride to Tampa. He called 911. Now, this is his booking photo, and on the show we have a booking photo meter, and you can't take into account what he's done. You simply have to evaluate this booking photo on any number of factors that you yourself bring to it. So you can assign on a 1 to 10 scale. This is a particularly interesting and special offering that this guy has given us for the booking photo. His hair is spiked up, for those who are just listening and not watching. And he's kind of got a distinct frown, and he just has a very interesting face. Kim, what do you think?
With the hair sticking up, the ears and the pouty pout, and the sad eyes, I think I'm going to give this one an 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
An 8.
I'm amused. He amuses me.
Wow. A 9, says Francine. Wow, you guys.
Yeah.
Chico Shar says 6.
Okay.
What do you think, Albert?
It's pretty high up there. He looks like one of those. I'm walking through Alcatraz and I see one of the former inmates.
Yes, very good call.
You just need to if you grayscale this, he'd fit right in. It's a solid. Like I'd give it 8.5. So I'm gonna up.
Wow, looks like Buster Keaton, says Alan. I agree. He's got a Buster Keaton-ish look. He does look like a Norman Rockwell character, says B.A. Ware. Anyway, for those who are just listening, I do recommend that you check out this booking photo on the YouTube show just to see this guy we're talking about. I'll under pressure. I'll give him an 8 as well. So well done.
I think it's
anyway,
it's really difficult to look both defiant and sad at the same time. Don't you think?
Yeah. He looks. Yeah. He's one of those hugely expressive faces, which is what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
The deputy was responding to the call, the deputy that showed up to the Dollar General store on Palmetto Street in Poinciana, Florida. And the call was regarding a man who called 911, alleging that he was having suicidal thoughts. When the deputy spoke with him, though, he ultimately admitted to lying about the suicidal thoughts because he needed a place to spend the night. He was tired of living at his current residence, you see, in Poinciana, or however you say it, Poinciana. So he concocted this plan, you see. It was a big plan to call 911 about having suicidal thoughts so he could get the cops to then take him to Tampa. Once he was released, the plan went on. He thought this through. Got to give the guy credit. He planned to use their resources to set up transportation to get him on to Tampa, I see, to see, since his mom no longer wanted to drive from there to pick him up. He was usually dependent on his mom's rides. So,
how was he going to explain the duffel bag or the suitcase in the back? No?
Yeah, you're right.
Nothing about that?
You're right. He's the thing about just being booked in. Well, sometimes they'll let you take your stuff. So to be fair, he probably could get away with a backpack. Anyway, he's cooling his jets, as it turns out. A Florida man is arrested after walking into a bank to try to withdraw 1 cent. It was in Sumter County. He's facing felony robbery charges. It happened in the afternoon on a Chase Bank on US 441 in Lady Lake. This guy, Michael Fleming, walks into the bank, fills out a withdrawal slip for 1 cent. Man, handed it to the bank teller, and that look alone without the note is... On the booking photo meter, what do you say on this one, Kim?
He is crazy eye.
Oh, my God,
it's
yes.
kind of like Charles Manson Jr. You know, throw on the forehead thing and, you know, they could be related. I just give the guy the penny and let him go. Like, get out of my area. But I'm going to give this one, I'm going to say, again, it's an 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
He leads with crazy eyes. I mean, this guy is leading. The other guy was leading with kind of sad anger. Also an 8 for you, Albert. Does an 8 sound right?
No, since he couldn't get the penny, I'll give him an honorary 1. So he. Yeah.
I'm going to give him a 7. I'll just mention that one of the things about this guy is he looks like those guys they bring in for a makeover, and they shave him and they style his hair, and all of a sudden he looks like, you know,
and he's
Richard
like a beautiful
Gere.
man. Yeah,
right.
Somehow,
I think he does have a 6'6" look. Lee says that's absolutely true. But he does look as though you could pivot that look, man. You get that guy off the meth or whatever is making him look like that. Anyway, he walked into the bank, filled out a withdrawal slip for a penny, handed it to the bank teller, and the bank teller reportedly told him he can't withdraw a penny. He said, "Well, you want me to say the other word?" And I guess the conversation ensued, which involved robbery. Deputies arrived, and he was still inside the bank, taken into custody, transported to the Sumter County Sheriff's Office, where he agreed to speak with deputies after being Mirandized. He'll need $5,000 worth of pennies to get out of jail, where he is now. 41-year-old dude in jail with a bad plan. Wild video.
Bad plan is right.
shows cops tracking down a Florida guy who tried to evade arrest, and this is increasingly the case, by swimming to a small island.
You know, it's a great way to get a little exercise in the Florida sun.
I mean, a Florida man, he swam to a small island. He hid out after he allegedly assaulted his girlfriend with a vodka bottle. But the cops got him. How did they get him, you may ask? I mean, he swam away. Well, they got a special technology to deal with that water between them and the island. It's called a boat.
Oh.
And they went out and they arrested him. There he is. Jeriel Joyner is his name. And we'll get to his situation in a second. They searched the islands, which are just inland from the Atlantic, and they found him sleeping inside a green tent, ordered him to keep his hands up as they opened the tent, and then he was arrested. The booking photo on here, we have actual video of the cops getting off the boat, confronting him there in the tent. And when they confronted him, by the way, he said, "What's up? What's going on?"
I'm just camping over here. Don't worry about it.
So his booking photo, I think, is it's like in a 6 range. I would give it. I don't know.
I'll give it a 5.
He's kind of got pretty cool neck art going.
I don't know what it is. It's like a big blob on his neck.
It looks like a panther. I don't know. It looks like it might be a panther or something. It looks kind of cool to me. Or maybe it's I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to give him 5, 6, somewhere in that category.
Yeah.
And the story from Florida about gators will not disappoint. This is a guy who uses an alligator to open a beer can.
What?
and it goes wild.
Tell me there's video. Wow. Yes, there's video.
Yeah. And that is crazy.
Whoa. Are those teenagers?
Teenagers or teenager adjacent. Yeah.
Those boys
They have to be
crazy.
old enough to drink, I guess. So the idea was to go viral, and apparently it worked.
I might actually be more offended that it looked like he threw that beer can down back into the water.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that.
Yeah. But that's, I mean...
Well, if you want to get into the serious conversation around it, I don't like, the abuse of animals, using animals that way.
Total disregard for wildlife. No.
Yeah, but it's been a deadly period for people in Florida and their relationship with gators, as you well know. A Florida man steals a pantry truck donated by Polk Sheriff Charities. That's Grady Judd's charity, everybody. And I'm telling you...
What he's got going here is a situation.
That's Grady Judd. It was filled with $25,000 worth of food. That's right. You don't mess with Grady. It was Jamie Hunt, 47 years old. There he is, Jamie, arrested. He was fired from Freedom Tour, a charity that uses mobile pantries to bring food to underserved communities, and he was fired for abusing drugs. But Hunt went to a church in Eloise to charge his scooter, and while his scooter was charging, Grady Judd said that Hunt jumped into a Freedom Tour box truck, which is donated by the Polk Sheriff's Charities. That's, again, headed up to by Grady, and drove to nearby Juanetta to visit friends. Judd said someone had left the keys inside the truck, which was filled with $25,000 worth of food. Mm-mm. While he was visiting with friends, he gave them some potato salad, Grady Judd said. Deputies found Hunt as he drove the truck back to the church in Eloise following a 911 call about the truck being stolen.
Hey, he's just borrowing it. Don't worry.
Judd said, well, I guess he's thinking no harm, no foul. But Hunt had an outstanding warrant for petty theft. He was also charged with grand theft of the truck, grand theft of $25,000 worth of food, driving with a suspended license, and burglary of an unoccupied structure. Jamie Hunt was then arrested and charged with all of those things. His booking photo meter, I'll give him a 6.5. No?
The way
maybe even a 7.
The angle at which he holds his head, I'll go 7. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 4 Florida women nabbed for stealing 24 Stanley Cups, lobster, champagne, and more.
That was a great Friday night.
It was a heist. They caught them, but they do have expensive tastes, these women.
They do.
They happened at 2 Winn-Dixie stores and 2 Ace Hardware stores in Nassau County. That's in northern Florida near Jacksonville. The women, Stacy Sullivan and Kaneki Hickson, Montavia Sullivan, and Trace Sullivan, stole an estimated $5,000 in merchandise. This reminds me of the movie that I'm in, Albert. Set It Off. Remember the women? They get together, they want to pull off a big heist. These women are not so different. They get together, they each have a specialty. And they begin their planning. Ace Hardware, they're on Minor Road in Yulee. Then you go over to where the Stanley Cups are, hiding them under their shirts and in their bags. Those are some pretty big
cups to be hiding under shirts.
Well, they wore big shirts, Kim.
Oh, okay.
An off-duty lieutenant who heard an alert on their radio to be on the lookout for the suspect's car found the vehicle at an intersection. The suspects pulled into a Winn-Dixie then, the parking lot there nearby. But it was too late. They were taken into custody. Inside the vehicle, deputies uncovered multiple Stanley Cups and lobster tails, steak, crab meat, and other food products from Winn-Dixie, along with an array of champagne. Wow.
That sounds like a great night, and it just got ruined.
Yeah,
that's why I say they remind me of the Set It Off gang, because they were all living large for a little while.
Uncle Russ calls it the Florida job.
That's. I'll give them a collective booking photo meter. I don't know, maybe even a 7, 6.5. What do you think? No. Ricky has it as 5, 4, 3, and 2. All right.
I really like them. I think they're cool. I'm going to give them an 8.5. Yeah.
Oh, 8.5. Wow. Mm-hmm. The Florida 4 says, be aware. Infamous. Well, ladies, you know where there's no lobster and champagne? In the joint. And that's where you're going.
Good day, sir.
Yeah. That's Friday Fabulous Florida. We have to vote for a favorite. We don't want to vote for a favorite. They all stand out in their own way. But sadly, it is in the bylaws of the show. So here we go. You just heard about the guy calling 911. He had suicidal thoughts that he faked up because he was looking to get a lift ultimately to Tampa, Florida, which he could do by first engaging deputies, and then they would arrest him, etc. A Florida man, not arrest him, but help him because he was in suicidal thoughts, and he goes to a mental hospital, and that's how he was going to do it. Florida man arrested after he tried to withdraw 1 cent from the bank. They don't have a transcript available, but apparently it did kind of segue into a larger amount that he wanted out of the bank. A wild video showing the tracking down of a Florida guy who was trying to evade arrest by swimming to a small island. He didn't account for the fact that the cops had a boat, and they went out there and arrested him. Florida guy uses an alligator to open a beer can. Then the internet goes wild. It's wildly viral. And the Florida man stealing Sheriff Grady Judge's pantry truck filled with $25,000 worth of food. And finally, the 4 Florida women nabbed for stealing 24 Stanley Cups, lobster, champagne, and more during a heist. We need to pick a favorite. I'll start with you, Kim.
Well, I really like the Florida job, ladies. And I don't like what was done to the alligator.
Oh,
Kim, how are you?
Yeah. I have to choose the gator because it's uniquely Florida. Yeah.
Even though you don't like it, you're saying you must
I don't
pick
like
it.
the abuse of wildlife. Using a gator to open a beer can would not happen in California.
But because it's gator, you're saying it's Florida. Okay.
That's right.
And Albert, how about you?
Yeah, the Gators actually leading in the polls right now, 34%. It's pretty close. Close second is the Florida job, but I'm going for the guy who called the cops to get a ride. You know, he said he had suicidal thoughts. It's truly a wild idea. He had to have known. He's a smart guy. He knew that there was a law that if you were have any of those feelings, they'll pick you up. So
that is true. He was. I kind of did broad stroked it, but it referred to a law that if you're having suicidal thoughts, they have to pick you up and take you to a mental facility, and then there are other various support structures there that he felt he could work to get a ride to Tampa.
I mean, on paper, Albert it looked great. Yeah.
It kind of
perfect plan.
It means he's been there before and he knows that, right?
Well, his mom's not picking him up anymore, so now he needs to, he needs to think it through. I like the crew, I like my crew there at the end with their Stanley Cups and the lobster and steak and the big heist. I like Americans who dream big like that. Yeah. I'm so proud of my newly adopted state every Friday, says Wes. Albert always finds the stories to make me proud. And I live in Polk County. Wow, Wes, I didn't know that. Man,
there's a reason that this place is fun.
Yeah, I guess Wes is there. Really wild. Thank you, Wes, for watching, listening, and being a supporter of the show. Thanks for the Super Chat, and that's Friday Fabulous Florida.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
What do I need to attend to? Is Michael Shure here?
He is here.
I don't hear you. I
yeah, he's
him.
here.
Okay, great.
He's,
well, then in that case,
The Mark Thompson Show.
What a time to be a political commentator and to have the kind of history of political science and this remarkable reservoir of knowledge that this guy has. He's forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He is with us whenever he can possibly do it, from airport runways and, rental car buses. He'll always try to be here. Gotta love him. Michael Shure, everybody. Hello,
well, I guess
sir.
Get right into the Keir Starmer stuff.
Yeah. For those joining us late who doesn't, that's the new government in Britain. He's the new prime minister. We're gonna backburner that and get right into the Joe Biden situation.
I hadn't prepared.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, Michael, it feels as though the realities of this situation bring an inevitability to him dropping out. Can you do the calculus and give me your thought?
I don't disagree, but I also think that we're in such a hurry all the time. There are 7 weeks till the convention. This is a process. A president doesn't just stand down from re-election immediately like you fire a coach because they lost a game. There's a lot that goes into it, and he is entitled more than anyone to come to that decision on his own and to also try to see if he can resuscitate his campaign. It looks unlikely. It looks like it's not the elephant in the room because everybody's talking about it. But were he to remain in the race and it to go on, it would still be the first question out of every reporter's mouth to anyone on his staff, his team, and himself, were he to put himself in front of the press. So I don't really see a way forward for him, but I do feel as if the party and the people around him have to give him that way forward for the moment, and it won't be abused, I don't think.
How big a deal is losing all of these high-profile donors?
Well, it's a huge deal. There's a lot of money in the bank, but there's a general election to be run. There's going to be more messaging that needs to be done now than there was before in light of what happened at the debate. So here's the thing: you lose those donors, but I think you lose them in a threatening way right now. If you don't drop out, we're not going to support you. But if the opposite is Donald Trump and you need that money, and Joe Biden, President Biden, is the candidate going forward, and there isn't a change at the top, money will come back. Maybe not as much, but money will come back. I think people are loath to give money to Joe Biden right now at the top of that ticket when they're not sure that they're giving it to the person who's going to remain at the top of that ticket. So I think that's really what you're dealing with now more than anything. And as soon as there is a new candidate, should he stand down, then I think then the money will come back pretty quickly. And if he remains in the race, I think a lot of it will come back.
The polling, which I know you have disdain for.
Yeah, but I don't have disdain. I don't have disdain for the immediate polling after an event like that. I mean, that is relevant and acute, and I think that kind of polling is good. And I think that polling after conventions can sometimes be a fool's errand because you build in a bump, but then the polls are going to start to matter a lot, and I think they do now because we've had an unprecedented change in the narrative of this election.
Well, thank you, because that was the poll I was going to point to. I mean, he's lost 6 percentage points, and he's, it's now not just swing states. He's now behind in states that we thought he would carry.
Right, and here's what I would caution with that is that if he stays on the ballot, those numbers will come back a little bit. They may not recover, and there certainly isn't going to be this sort of rush to get those numbers back. But I think you're seeing also a reflection of dissatisfied Democrats who say it's okay to not support, who feel like it's okay now finally to not support Joe Biden. Were he to remain in the race, be the nominee, I think some of those numbers would crawl back to certainly closer. But I don't think, I think there is damage that has been done.
It's odd, and we talk about it a lot. We talked about it a lot in the first hour, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot in the days ahead. It's odd that it takes all the media oxygen and the toxicity, in my view, that is on the other side. That is to say, your option is so poisonous. The kind of America you'll live in under a Donald Trump administration is so scary that there is almost no choice. And I always say I'd take Biden on a hospital gurney against Donald Trump. But my point is simply, that's me.
Yeah.
Is the way it works out in these situations that people just don't pull the lever for president? It's not as though they go to Trump. They also see Trump. They must see the distinct difference, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I assume, I think it's too early to tell, but they saw this. Or it's we already know the answer, which is 2020. That more people saw what they knew of Donald Trump and they voted for Joe Biden, even though he was not, a consensus. He was elected because they felt like he could beat Trump in a strange year, in the middle of a pandemic, and so I think that it's a little bit different right now. And I think that this kind of timeout from labeling the other side is certainly temporary, right? I mean, the media is focused on what is a massive story, an unprecedented story in the history of the American presidency. So I understand that. It doesn't mean they're not going to go right back to, Donald Trump and his campaign, and that, Trump has kind of taken a timeout now. He got some good news from the Supreme Court last week. He also was going to name a vice presidential candidate. Now he'd be a fool to do that because all the media attention that's on Biden only helps him. And it may change who he picks, were it to be Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket or somebody else, but most likely the vice president. So I think that the focus is on the Democrats now. It won't remain there. This will be resolved one way or the other. And then there will be a focus on Donald Trump, which is going to be something that's going to make a lot of people not want to vote for him. But I think a lot of that is already built in.
I will double back to what would happen, maybe process, if you want to think of it that way, when it comes to replacing Biden. I'll double back to that in a moment, but I just want to stay in this area of the politics of what's going on, because you get somebody like Sanjay Gupta, the high-profile, I think he's a neuroscientist, neurosurgeon, who is on CNN, of course. He
coincidentally the host of Paging Dr. Gupta. What are the chances?
That's very good knowledge. I did not aware of that. But he's their medical correspondent, and he called for Joe Biden to undergo full neurological and cognitive testing, and he called for the results to be released. Now, just from a political standpoint, that strikes me as absurd. I mean, I think you have a diminished guy in Donald Trump. I mean, I don't know that, Donald Trump hasn't some of the same challenges that Joe Biden has. Maybe they're at different stages, maybe they manifest in different ways. But and he also has, wild personality defects. But the point is, that kind of drumbeat for you need to take a cognitive test, Mr. President, and then the release of those results has to be something that the American people see. This is, I think, making it harder for Biden to clear the narrative with some interview with George Stephanopolis.
Yeah, I don't think he will clear the narrative. I mean, a couple of things. Are we within our rights to know if the U.S. president has cognitive defects? Sure, especially when we're making a selection. But I think that it should go both ways. I think both men should get that test if it's called for. I think that it's part of the conversation about, an age limit for that office that will certainly happen in the years ahead. But I also bristle at some TV doctor saying that we've got to do this. I mean, it's attention grabbing and sensational. And I think the American people kind of know what they have with Joe Biden. They were a little more concerned after the last outing. I also go back to the State of the Union address. People talked about what great energy the president had, how they were confident in him. I didn't have that same feeling then. I thought he did a good job, and there was some responsive stuff that worked, but he's still an 81-year-old man with a slowed gait, and by his own admission, is not as good when he has to put in a longer day. And the American people, that for a lot of them, that's enough to know, right? I mean, what they want in a president. And I think that those are the kind of pieces of information that people make their mind up over, not whether he can name the first 5 presidents of the United States or whatever else is on those cognitive tests. But I understand wanting to kind of have a test to his capacity. I just think it would have to go both ways. And I think it's a distraction from what's at hand right now.
Now to process, Michael, if he does step back, the war chest that's his, only Kamala Harris has access to that, right?
Right. Yeah, that's right. And there's a question of the delegates. There are, Joe Biden has over 3,000 pledged Democratic delegates at the convention in August. And there are, uncounted, about 750 super delegates that aren't declared till they get there, but they wouldn't make up that difference. So you'd have to think, looking at all of this, that the de facto candidate would be Kamala Harris. Now, whether or not the president were to resign, I don't think he will. I think that he would just do an LBJ and say, I'm not going to run for re-election, and then play out the string, and then Vice President Harris has that. And I think that it saves a big headache for the Democrats having that die be cast in such a way. I think that there's some curious backstage politics in this too. I mean, you see Gavin Newsom, who has the most to, I guess, lose if Harris is the nominee right away. They're both from the same state. He has a lot of the momentum, a lot of the fundraising. Were there to be an open seat in 2024, 2028. So those politics are quite interesting. It's kind of turns the table on that a little bit, and that's why he's saying, Joe, stay in, the president's fine. But I also think, and I think this is like a word of caution to people who follow this and have their mind made up on who Kamala Harris is. She brings a lot of help to this ticket. There is, people historically don't love the vice president. They don't know what the vice president does, especially in a time of social media where, the president made her the pivot person on immigration. Immigration has been such a disaster. The vice president is charged with a lot of unimportant, unheralded, and undone tasks, and really their purpose is to lift the ticket, to be a yes person for the president, and then also to be able to stand in for the president should something happen, the old heartbeat away thing. But who she is going to change the scope of this election. It's going to, in many ways, help Democrats because they had an unenthusiastic base. Unlike the base that Donald Trump has, who are going to rallies in negative 20-degree weather and waiting for 4 hours to hear him speak, and so what Harris can do is, for example, with black voters, with women, get people who might have been on the fence or not excited about Joe Biden, give them more of a reason. You're also going to see something that none of us can anticipate, not me, not you, nobody, which is this energy, the exuberance, the fast pace of a candidate opposite Donald Trump in this race that we haven't seen before, should she be the nominee or anyone else, frankly. It's not just reserved for Harris. The other thing is a lot of what has Democrats, looking at the other side more than before are these law and order issues. And her position when attorney general and district attorney on law and order issues in Northern California and in the state of California left a lot of Democrats uncomfortable, but it might be just the right flavor for these times. And that is something that they can maybe win back some support on were she to be the nominee. They're going to lose some people too. And there are people whose minds are already made up about the vice president, but it's going to change the scope of this. And I would reserve judgment on who she is as a national candidate until that happens, because it's going to be very different from where it stands right this second. And again,
such a wonderful point about her history as a prosecutor, because this is a country that seems to be tacking toward that law and order, that more moderate rather than progressive view toward law and order. And the typical, in fact, it's out there right now on Kamala Harris, the typical slam from the left I'm talking about is, she jailed all these brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? This I saw that from a couple of different leftists. One was a preacher, one was a pundit. But in any case, I think that you're right. In a country that seems to be quacking more and more in a moderate way, she actually may land more cleanly with that history than will it be problematic for her.
And she'll be able to articulate it in a way that this 81-year-old president, doesn't have to, and may not be as energetic about doing. And when I say doesn't have to, he's already the president. He has an administration. They have an agenda. He's accomplished what he's accomplished. He's not going to be called upon to answer in maybe more than just a question or two, but in a sort of philosophical way. She can define what the party says going into this election on an issue that is bothering a lot of people. And she can say, look at my record in California. Now, it might piss off a lot of progressives, but it's also going to make a lot of people more comfortable, and people in the middle. I think that that it's not all rosy, but there are rosy things to find with the vice president.
So I'll ask you, can she win?
Yeah, absolutely. I think beating Donald Trump is not that difficult, and I think that Kamala Harris, once she, gets her footing and that people see who she is, aside from assuming who she is, I think that's going to be a different person that comes out. And look, when you're the nominee of a party, I mean, Mike Dukakis was even elevated in stature. The people who don't seem to have the stature, and I'm not saying she doesn't have stature, because she does. She's charismatic. She's successful. She has been elected to, many different things, including the vice presidency on a national ticket. I think that perceptions do change when that happens of who that person is. Also, people become more forgiving when they have a nominee. People will vote for, and we see it. I mean, we see Ted Cruz voting for Donald Trump. People just become more forgiving when the die has been cast.
I want to ask you about down ballot races, because there's been a lot of concern among other Democrats who are running for office.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could just speak to that. Take it in any way you want, but it's definitely something that's been talked about in a more problematic way than before the debate performance from Joe Biden.
Yeah, look, I think it's obviously very hypothetical. I would imagine that some of these Senate races are going to be hurt by Joe Biden's performance, in that an electorate, a Democratic electorate or a Republican electorate, but in this case, the Democrats, less enthusiastic about voting for the top of the ticket, right? And who does that hurt? It hurts the people at the bottom of the ticket every time. Rarely do you see success go in opposite ways. My favorite one example of that was Al Gore winning Pennsylvania over George W. Bush, and Rick Santorum, one of the most conservative senators maybe in American history, but certainly in our modern time, winning on the same night as Al Gore. It does happen that you see these kind of quirky things happen. But I think it's going to hurt Senate candidates, and I think House candidates may benefit, because in those tight races, energy matters more than it does in a statewide race. In a district race, it can matter a lot. Also, she's a Californian, and a lot of those seats that are swing seats are Californian seats. They're more comfortable and more familiar with Kamala Harris as a candidate on their ballots. It sounds silly and sounds basic, but it does translate. They're going to be comfortable and more excited probably about coming out to the ballot box if, in fact, Harris is at the top of the ticket.
There's a narrative emerging. This is the attack ad narrative, and It is these senators and congresspeople were aware of the diminished capacity of Joe Biden and were complicit, in effect, in keeping it from you, the American people. That's the attack ad. I've seen one of them already. And I wonder, and this is something you can't really answer, and I love to ask you questions that you can't really answer, but could that get traction? These people, all of them, these senators, the Democrats across the board, they all knew this is all part of a conspiracy to keep that information from you, the American voter. Does that get traction?
I mean, my predictive analysis would be like for a minute, and with some people who are looking for conspiracies, and their conspiracies gain traction with those people all the time. I don't think it's going to matter big picture. I don't think there seems to have been a cabal of people other than the White House itself, the administration. Also, it makes sense, right? I mean, you have a president who is older, who misspeaks, who has authored successful legislation, who has been out on the hustings campaigning. I mean, but you're shielding him because of the things that we saw during the debate. And so, I mean, that's also good team play. If you have an injured player, you're not going to tell the whole league that the player is injured. I know it matters. I know it matters in presidential politics because he is the commander in chief, and there are decisions that need to be made. And I think that's important. And I think that we've done it before in the past. They did it with Roosevelt. They hid, the fact that he was in a wheelchair. With Reagan, they hid his diminishing competence, mental competence. So I think that's sort of natural human nature. You shield the ones around you, but I think it matters. But I don't think it's going to stick. The conspiracy side of it will. I think it's, they kept the media department kept him off the stage.
Right, of course, and they should have kept him off the stage that night. Michael, Commish, you know what Michael is besides just being a hockey fan? He's a great sports fan. Michael Shure is a big tennis fan.
He is, yes.
Yeah. Let me just see this. Sorry, I can't see this comment. I heard some commentators say that Biden saved democracy. I'll get back to tennis in a second. I'm sure that's a great comfort to 2% of the audience that watches tennis. Yeah. I heard some commentators say that Biden saved democracy by running, and he can save democracy again by resigning. Well, that's certainly. Thank you, Trevor Starr in Hollywood.
I wouldn't. So I don't know about resigning. I think maybe not running. I don't think he saves democracy by resigning necessarily, but that's certainly an opinion that I could have a conversation about. But I think what in a sense, what people elected Joe Biden for, Democrats, many of them who voted for Joe Biden, said, okay, here's a guy who can hold our hands, older man, take us out of the abyss, and then just hand us off to the next person. And I think a little of that's been lost. I think that was Joe Biden's opportunity. And I think had he said, I'm not going to run for re-election last year at some point when I was predicting he would, I think he would have looked a lot better. He had a good record as a president, still has a good record as a president on the numbers by which we measure presidents. And he would have, his legacy would have been in stone as one of the most effective one-term presidents in U.S. history. Now he's going out in a blaze of confusion. And if that's the case, and it I think it tarnishes it a little bit. And like your listener viewer said, it messes with it a little bit. That doesn't mean that he can't be a hero by not running again, but the heroism is tempered a little bit because it seemed not to come from within. It came from outside.
Delwood says Mark chose to ignore all the signs of Biden's decline, even as late as this past week. Well, actually, this past week, I don't know when you're talking about. Once I'd seen Thursday, I was beginning to question. But to your point, Delwood, I think I believed, and I think that there is frankly pretty good evidence that the guy was a good administrator, and the administration that he had chosen, managers and cabinet officials, et cetera, had done some really great things. In other words, I didn't see the manifestation of problems of mental acuity in the administration of Joe Biden. I mean, of course, I listened to press conferences, all the rest, and I always thought, well, the guy drones on. He's halting in his manner. He was an old man. But I certainly didn't see the kind of breakdown that I saw on stage. So you're not wrong. You're wrong about chose to ignore. I mean, if I had known all of these things, I would not have been as full-throatedly behind him. So I think that's a little bit rude, but I understand, what you mean.
Also to that point is that, that chose to ignore thing is that's not true, right? You didn't choose to ignore anything. We knew who he was. We knew that he was an older man, remains an older man. And we have to remember, too, on Joe Biden's best days, when he was at his most confident, cognizant, when his mental acuity was at its top, he was still not great at debates. He was still not great at public speaking. And he was a good orator, but he was not good at sort of making a point and coming up with an answer very quickly. This is not someone who was, he was elected many times to the Senate from Delaware, a small state, an insular state, and a state that at that time, Wilmington, Delaware, the center of banking in this country. And I think that's really, I think what he is. I don't think that Joe Biden surprised many people, just that he seemed pretty tired and pretty out of it the other day. But he did surprise a lot of people. But I don't think that this is something that has been ignored. We've known about it, but maybe now it's time to rethink whether he's at the top of the ticket.
And we noted before, and I saw the comment up there, hiding, lying, Trump was a liar, and now the Democrats are a liar, lying about Biden's condition, hiding it from the general public is wrong. Again, FDR is a classic example. I mean, effective presidency, and they were hiding his illness and his infirmity all the way. Again, it was sort of common knowledge on one level, but it was certainly not something they were, issuing a press release over. So again, there's
Then people rally to protect the person that they're paid to protect in a way too. I mean, the cabinet protected Bill Clinton after his foibles. Richard Nixon's group came together until they didn't. I mean, it's the first instinct is to protect, and if they have a commodity and they have the power, they want to keep it. And be that as it may, that's just sort of human nature.
Well, this is a point I've made before on this show, but apparently I guess Lawrence O'Donnell made it as well, probably more effectively than I've ever made it. But John says, see Lawrence O'Donnell's show from last Friday? He describes the actual job of being president. And the job is not to give 90-second answers to press questions. No, of course. But sadly, as I made the point in the first hour, in this media environment, you do need to communicate well enough to. That's really all Trump has. Yeah. Trump has no ability to administer. He's a golfer and a guy who watches Fox and Friends. That's all he is. But boy, he's out there and he's spinning it. And Biden just the opposite. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, while whatever Lawrence said, I didn't see the show. It's true. It isn't about 90-second sound bites and questions, but it's also about 90-second sound bites and questions. And so I think that has to be, you're projecting America around the world. And if that's how the country, not everybody tunes into the stuff every day like we do all day long. The country watches a debate in big numbers and they see that. They're like, this is not really the person I want to be going to the G7. This is not the person I want to be handling, a hurricane crisis. This is not the person I want to be putting forward a budget or, deciding whether or not we send men into battle.
That's what Trump was saying, on the golf course when they got him. You saw that video. It's like, you got to be tough against General Xi. Let me tell you, that guy's he's a bruiser. And you think Biden, that piece of crap's going to be able to, so you open yourself up to that now.
There was a hockey question that flew by. Sadly,
was there a hockey question, Albert?
It's too bad.
Anything?
Yeah, it was in reference of the handling of the Stanley Cup. So the Florida Panthers won, and Matthew Tkachuk famously took the Stanley Cup to the Atlantic Ocean. So
yet the game staffer handles the cup with gloves on. There's not a second cup. There are the rings of the other cup, and there is actually a second cup that sits a replica cup that sits. Sorry, dogs that sits at the Hockey Hall of Fame. But the guys, it's not the team, it's not the staffer. There's a guy named Phil Pritchard who is the keeper of the cup. He spends his entire life taking the cup around the country and around the world, and so. Wearing the gloves and shining it, that's for show. It's big moment when they hand it off. They want it to look good, and then it's going to get destroyed, and then they repair it later on.
What does the keeper of the cup job pay?
I don't know. I'm going to run for it, but I don't. There he is. There's Phil Pritchard. And he's got the gloves on, and then it's handled terribly. But it's sort of like, I don't know. If you buy something nice and in the store they treat it nicely and you get it home and you don't treat it as nicely, the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Michael, thank you. We're out of time. Can't even talk tennis with you. Appreciate you here, though.
Can't even talk tennis. Okay, well, it's okay.
I don't know. It's a great match today on center court, and looks like a great Wimbledon. So, and your boy Patrick McEnroe is. I will tell you something. Michael's friend is Patrick McEnroe.
We got to get him on the show, Mark.
Well, I'll tell you what. Again, I may have said it before, but it really struck me again this year.
Yeah,
he has. He was already really good, but he has become I think a really world-class broadcaster now in his ability to speak effortlessly, not just about the analysis and the analytical aspects of tennis and what's going on, but to speak about the event, its significance. He contextualizes things really well, and he does it in this just beautiful style. I'm really so happy. I don't know the man at all, but I think he's really grown into that role so beautifully. Gosh.
Yeah, and he's worked really hard at it. I will say that. He's worked hard at it. He cares about it, and he does it really well. Growing up, I never thought there'd be a time where he wasn't in the tennis world, John McEnroe's brother. But I feel like right now with the broadcasting that John is Patrick McEnroe's brother.
I think that's right. I think that's really right. And so far, it has done me no good to know him through you. So
yeah, well, I'll have to get him on the show. Well,
that would be so much fun.
For you, he loves tennis fans. He can plug his podcast and his appearances and things like that. So we'll
look, the U.S. Open is coming, so maybe around that time. Or
I just don't want to lose my politics job to Patrick. That's
okay. Find him across social media. Find him across the web. Find him here on Fridays. Michael Shure, everybody. Thank you, pal. Appreciate it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, I went long with Shure. I want to get to Kim, though. I want to get to Snyder. I got to go to a doctor's thing after this. I got more doctors. Every day is a goddamn doctor, man. Let me run a scenario by you. The show's going to run a little long if we go to Kim, but I really want to go to Kim. So I just think we tell our stations we're going to run a little bit longer, and we get Michael Shure in, and we do a turbo news like we did last hour. Is that cool?
I like that. The same exact news as last hour, and then we'll get right to this.
Good. Yeah, so the same exact pace of things. We'll do turbo news with Kim, and then the great culture blaster, Michael Snyder. There is something that happened, and I'm surprised nobody mentioned it. I'm surprised that I haven't mentioned it. I don't know if you're aware of it, but...
A major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
It's kind of waiting for one of my colleagues to mention it. It's kind of so exciting, but I
blame you.
All right. I mean, I think it's not without some blame for me, maybe, because I could have mentioned it at all. Mentioned it as well, I should say. We passed 35,000 subscribers.
Hey, woohoo!
Which is very cool. And it's very difficult, and it's a lot of work, and I think it's okay to give us a thumbs up, at 35,000. I don't know that that's going to change anything, but it's certainly good to know that people are subscribing to the point that we have, I think when it comes to booking, maybe a greater kind of leverage, people can be on board who might not be. But I really give credit to all the people who came over with us from KGO before we had even 1,000 subscribers. David K. Johnston came over. We were just the seedling, and we're still a little tiny tree that still has a lot of care that it needs to get and support, and that's the audience. And thank you, because without you guys, we would never have done it. But I'm really proud of Kim and Albert and Tony and all of this audience for supporting in this effort. So thank you again. And congratulations on 35,000 subscribers.
This has been a major announcement of the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
Yeah. All right, Kim's News, and then the Culture Blaster, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, on the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Let's talk about President Biden. Tonight is the night where President Biden's interview with ABC News will air. The interview coming as the president faces growing calls within his own party to exit the 2024 race over concerns about the possible state of his mental health. An heiress of Disney says that she will stop contributing to the Democrats unless President Biden is replaced on the presidential ticket. As Mark mentioned earlier, Abigail Disney told CNBC she intends to stop any contributions to the party until President Biden drops out. She said she means no disrespect. Disney said President Biden is a good man and served the country admirably, but the stakes for this election, she said, are just too high. She said if President Biden doesn't remove himself, the Democrats will lose and the consequences will be dire. More than 50 cities have the potential to see record-breaking heat today. There are more than 125 million people under a heat alert or a heat advisory across the South and parts of the West. Death Valley, California is expected to hit 130 degrees, which could break its own world record. 130 in Death Valley.
You don't want to break down. You just do not want to break down
No.
going through there to
No.
the desert.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court is issuing a decision reinstating the use of ballot drop boxes in the battleground state. This overturns a decision that the court made less than 2 years ago that banned ballot drop boxes, said the decision doesn't force or require any municipal clerks to use the boxes. The court added the ruling acknowledges the clerks can lawfully use those drop boxes at their own discretion. Welcome to America. 1 person is dead and 8 hurt after a drive-by mass shooting on the 4th of July in Philadelphia. Police, the only thing that would make that more poignant is it happened near the Liberty Bell. Police say a gunman fired out of the passenger side of a moving SUV toward a party. The gunshot victims are all teens or in their early 20s. No arrests have been made, but police say they are investigating a lead there. The family of a Daly City woman who died when she was pushed in front of an oncoming BART train this week is devastated over her loss. Alvin Dandon says he got the call Monday night after his aunt, 74-year-old Corazon Dandon, was killed at the Powell Street station. He says his Aunt Cora helped raise him and put him through medical school, allowing him to become the doctor he is today. He said she should be remembered as a kind, generous, hardworking woman. BART police immediately arrested 49-year-old Trevor Belmont, a man they described as a transient in connection with that incident. Oakland police warning the public about robbers posing as police officers to gain entrance to their residences. OPD. No, it isn't. There have been 2 recent residential robberies in East Oakland. The suspects dressed in plain clothes, verbally identifying themselves as police officers. The suspects, when confronted, announce OPD or police as they enter the residences. The Oakland Police Department says officers will knock and announce their presence wearing identifying clothing, and they typically do not force entry into residences. Officials suggest calling 911 if you're in doubt whether it's truly a cop at the door or not. YouTube is updating its eraser tool to remove copyrighted music while leaving other audio intact. The tool allows creators to easily remove music they didn't pay for without affecting dialogue or sound effects. The tool uses an AI-powered algorithm to detect and remove only a song that's been flagged for usage.
That's huge for us. I mean, you know, we stay away from all music because, I mean, we've had people on who are, like we had the other day, the woman on who co-wrote Gonna Fly Now, the
Carol
Bill
Connors,
Conti. Yeah, Carol Connors. And I couldn't play any of the Rocky music because it will demonetize us, you know, completely. Right. So the idea that you could run it and then excise it from the video is a really cool development. So bravo, YouTube, on coming up with that.
A Phoenix police officer, lastly, pulled over a robo-taxi for driving on the wrong side of the road. Hey, that's not supposed to happen. This now viral body cam video shows the officer's shock when he walks up to the car and sees the empty driver's seat. The autonomous vehicle belongs to Waymo, which recently recalled nearly 700 vehicles because they couldn't recognize poles in alleys. So that's a problem as well. Driving down the wrong side of the road, not what you want in your autonomous vehicle. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So yesterday, hosting the family 4th of July party, I had the drink tank out, and I filled it with hibiscus tea from CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Oh, yeah.
It got rave reviews. Everyone loved it. The
There's
color
never been
was
anything like this.
Yeah.
red, perfect for the holiday,
Oh.
and it was so, so good. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I love the tea. Mark loves the coffee. So
We love the tea also. Courtney likes the hot tea. Of course, she just has to, but it's a little, I'm sure the cold tea is great too. Look at all that stuff. The great thing about it, like, there's just a great resource. And as I always mention to you, it is, it's new crop. Okay, so all the coffee beans, which are hand roasted, are new crop. What is new crop? It means it's fresh. It's just been grown. There are dates on all of it. If you go across the internet, you find cheaper coffee. Some of it's really high-profile coffee. That is past crop coffee. Okay, that's why they can discount it. This is new crop. There's our Why Are You Yelling decaf, which is a Peruvian coffee, if you want decaf. And there are tasting notes, and as I say, even as they've grown, they still hand roast every bag of coffee. And apparently the tea is terrific. I've had a bit of it and I really like it. And Courtney drinks it like it was her job. And so, and Kim, of course, you've heard about how much she loves it. So do get the discount because it's for our audience only, 10% off, Mark T. Enter it at checkout. As you see, Albert is showing you how to do it now. And apply that discount, and it'll be, I think, just an even better experience for you. So 10% off for listeners and viewers of this show. Just put in Mark T at checkout and support our great sponsor, Coachella Valley Coffee.
So I turned my sister on to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, and she's fallen in love with their mango tea. So she's telling me yesterday I had to put in another order for mango tea. I said, did you use the discount code at checkout? She goes, what?
Oh, no.
I said, are you kidding me? You didn't put Mark T in at checkout? Really?
That's the whole deal.
My own relative.
Stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Well, also, not only does it save you money, but when you put the code in at checkout, they know that you're a Mark. They heard that you heard about them from us, right?
Oh, sure, that
so
too.
It lets them know that.
I'm betting if you call them, if you're, you know, if that the Roastmaster General there, Cliff, he'll likely take care of it. He's going to come on, but he'll give it. They're so cool. I've had so many, and I got to get to Michael. But I had so many reports from people going, oh, it was so great. I over-ordered. And Cliff said, just hang on to it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to send it back. Or they sent, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that. So he's totally cool. And if she calls, they'll give her the 10% discount. So there's that. You should ask her to do that. Yeah.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, the website. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What up, everybody? It is our big Friday show. So excited. Yeah. We get back up, dust ourselves off, and do our Friday thing. This guy is so much a part of Fridays. Big part of our life. Music, television, streaming, movies. His sophisticated takes extend from subtitled Korean films to some underground offering that he saw at Sundance to the mainstream world of Marvel and that whole universe. He's the great Michael Snyder, and he comes and goes on a rainbow. How about it for Michael? What's up, Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster?
Well, huzzah, Mark Thompson. So glad we're back together, albeit separated by most of a state, I guess. And until next week, I think I will be back in the LA area, but I'm still reveling in the aftermath of this holiday. Actually, I know it's kind of a loaded question, but how was your Independence Day, Mark?
It was quiet, as I recall. What did you do? What did you do?
Well, mine was very somber. Let's just say that after the events of last week, no one would blame me for downing a fifth on the fourth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Did you go watch something at a fireworks display, Chrissy Field or something like that?
No, I clambered up to the top of Russian Hill. And I watched the fireworks display on the bay. And if you follow me on Instagram, I am Mike the Knife 123. You'll see a nice shot of a fireworks thing that I'd never seen before, cascading sparkles like a waterfall, only done in fireworks. It was so beautiful. And, I felt kind of good about the country for about an hour. And then I started thinking about what went down last week. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, what do you have for us this week? I want to know about what's going on with this. I know you'll get to it, the Beverly Hills Cop movie.
Well, let's get to the monkey business at hand. I want to preface this by saying if you're a movie reviewer trying to cover a broad swath of movies every week, choices have to be made. For instance, I did not review the 3-hour-plus Kevin Costner Western epic Horizon, which I refer to as Kevin's Vanity. I didn't do it last week. It was not screened for the critics or many others, as far as I can tell.
That's always a bad sign, right, Michael Snyder?
You are absolutely right. And there was no way I was going to a theater on Thursday night to sit through it if the studio was so bearish on it that they didn't make a readily available screening for reviewers. As for this week, the ostensible crime thriller Boneyard did not make the cut, with a cast top-lined by Mel Gibson, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, and Brian Van Holt. How could I possibly pass on it, you might ask? Anyway, seriously, caveat emptor. So what do we have on tap on the movie front this weekend? I want to start by noting that I did a Voice of San Francisco piece discussing franchise fatigue a few weeks back. You can dig it up at thevoicesf.org. And it was all about the increasing dissatisfaction with the generation of big budget blockbuster film properties that are cannibalized over and over by studios as safe bets to generate big box office. And this sort of bottom line stuff is less to do with art and creativity and more to do with milking cash cows instead of investing in new film projects and fresh ideas. Now, sometimes the sequels and prequels are quite good and worth seeing. I mean, recently we had Inside Out 2 from Pixar and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and they were both really top drawer as far as I was concerned. And that is too often not the case. A few weeks back, we had the release of Bad Boys 4, aka Ride or Die, decades after the first of these Will Smith, Martin Lawrence buddy cop pictures. And this new one struck me as a crass money grab that had its moments, admittedly. As for this week's movies, they include 3 sequels of varying quality. And let's see what I think of them. What do you say?
No, I would like a longer preamble if you could. What is going on here, Albert? He does a 2.5 minute preamble. My God.
Hey,
get to the movies already. My God, sir.
I'm not the one that's running late, Mark. Well, I guess I am now. Okay, so let me zip through this. I just want people to understand it's a syndrome in the movie business. So, Despicable Me 4. That's right, there's 4 of them. It's the latest movie in the frenetic cartoon film franchise from Illumination Animation that gave Universal Studios the incredibly marketable Minions, those little grinning yellow one-eyed mischief makers who serve as the now former supervillain Gru's shock troops and all-around kid-friendly hench creatures. They have become, in some ways, the most important or valuable asset in the Despicable universe. If you go on the Universal Studios tour in LA, I assume you're assaulted by employees in Minion costumes until you buy a Minions t-shirt or a plush toy. So the Minions have proven so popular that they had 2 of their own movies, including a young Gru origin story, in addition to the linear gruesomeness with Steve Carell voicing the megalomaniacal but often inept Gru, a guy who wants to rule the world until he is swayed by love, specifically love for 3 orphan girls, and for Lucy, a cheerful can-do woman voiced by Kristen Wiig, and he changes his ways. So Gru is now an agent of the Anti-Villain League. He's married to Lucy and is undercover in the suburbs with her, their 3 adopted daughters, those aforementioned orphans, and their newborn baby boy, Gru Jr., who, by the way, could possibly face a lawsuit from baby Jack Jack of Pixar and Disney's The Incredibles, since he is absolutely the spitting image of Jack Jack. And, Disney is notoriously litigious. But let's move on to the movie itself. Legal issues aside, villainy is still out in the world in the form of Maxime Limal, voiced by Will Ferrell, and his nasty girlfriend Valentina, voiced by Sofia Vergara, who are planning to take down Gru and his family for the sheer evil of it. They are singularly unimpressive and unfunny adversaries, Mark. There's a waspy couple voiced by Stephen Colbert and SNL's Chloe Fineman. Love them both. And this couple lives next door to the Gru household, and they must be kept in the dark about the Anti-Villain League and espionage and such, although their conniving tween daughter is a would-be supervillain herself. And she's trying to blackmail Gru into teaching her all his villainous ways. So there's that supposed tension. Yes, Despicable Me 4 is a load of color-popping frenzy with scads of slapstick humor and Minions hijinks. I mean, the Anti-Villain League experiences a little shortfall in firepower, so they experiment on 5 of the Minions to turn them into a superpowered task force. But it is literally all over the map, and with scenes that don't advance the story such as it is and aren't as hilarious as they want to be. It just didn't sit well with me. And here's the weirdest thing about it. The script is co-written by Mike White, who is immensely talented. He's the guy who created and wrote School of Rock and the White Lotus TV series, and those are just two of his impressive efforts. But this is woefully lacking in much genuine wit or strong story elements. You know, any familial warmth that tries to generate for the Gru clan and, you know, Gru the father loving Gru the son is kind of weak sauce. Would I call this, you know, great? No. It's directed by Illumination vet Chris Renault, who has frankly done better. I guess I'm kind of over Gru in the gang. Would I call it despicable? Me? No. It's just what I'd have to say about the speed of a middling Saturday morning cartoon, despite all the bucks it costs to put such a glossy extravaganza to the big screen. It's in theaters. I think it's going to play well at home for families, but I was not impressed.
Wow. He says his pass on Despicable Me. 4.
Yes. All right. I do want to talk about.
Word, by the way. Yeah.
I want to talk about the sequel that I really dug immensely, and that's Maxine with 3 X's in the middle. This is the third of Ty West's trilogy of horror, starring the young actress Mia Goth, who has been incredible. In the first 2 films, X, which is about a porn shoot on a farm in the early 80s that goes terribly bad, as in like hatchets and horrible gory death. And then the second of the films is a prequel about one of the characters in X, Pearl, who is an older woman on the farm in X. And in Pearl, you meet her as a young woman and see what molded her into the person she would become. Again, played by Mia Goth, and it is a terrific film on all fronts. It's a great horror movie. It's a great character study. And then after this prequel, Ty West has come up with a sequel to X, and that is Maxine. Now, Maxine is kind of a survivor. She survived the dangers of X and finally has made it to Hollywood. Maxine Minks, who is played to a fare thee well by Mia Goth, she is a porn star, but she wants to be famous, and that might mean making it big in Hollywood, in the wild, new wavy 1980s as a legit actress, or maybe doing something more notorious. Kevin Bacon, by the way, is in this thing, and he's fantastic as an amoral private detective. Bobby Cannavale and Michelle Monaghan are 2 LA police detectives. Giancarlo Esposito is Maxine's agent who will do anything for his client. Elizabeth Debicki, who was so good in The Night Manager and was in the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie and all the a few other great things. She was in The Crown, I believe. She plays a director of horror movies, a woman in the 80s who's making her way through the Hollywood machine. Lily Collins, that's right. It's unbelievable, but Emily in Paris is here as a starlet who is playing the lead in Debicki's character's first big hit, The Puritan. And Maxine might be on her way when she's cast in The Puritan 2, but the Night Stalker is plaguing LA, looking for and killing young women, and there may be another sinister force terrorizing Hollywood in Maxine. Mia Goth is so good. The tongue-in-cheek stuff about Hollywood, the references to famous horror movies and Italian giallo horror movies, which are very, very gory. That's all going on here. You remember the Manson cult and all that stuff from the 70s. There are whiffs of cults here in Maxine. I got a total kick out of this thing. It is the least of these 3 movies, by the way, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a roaring good time and bloody fun. Maxine is in theaters, and we'll see.
It's a horror movie, Michael? Is it scary?
It's a horror movie, but it's also a satire of Hollywood. And it also is a lovely period piece with all kinds of new wave and punk music on the soundtrack and disco tunes and a lot of colorful stuff going on Hollywood Boulevard. There is a scene, on Hollywood Boulevard, you have out-of-work actors playing famous icons like Charlie Chaplin and Superman. There was a scene with one of those guys that I absolutely loved. This is not as funny as I think it wanted to be, but I still got a big kick out of it. And the adventures of Maxine Minks are definitely worth checking out, particularly if you like horror movies. And
is it scary, Michael Snyder?
There are moments, if you haven't watched the other movies, I wouldn't recommend watching this anyway, Mark. It's one of those things.
Oh, that's too bad, because you've intrigued me. I kind of want to watch this one, but you're saying you do need to see the other two.
Yeah, and X is a more conventional horror film. Pearl is a really fascinating character study, like I said. I really enjoyed I've enjoyed all three films, and I am a big Mia Goth fan. And everybody thought so highly of those movies that top-notch actors like Kevin Bacon and Bobby Cannavale and Debicki and Monahan and Esposito all showed up for this one. And let me tell you, even the idea that Lily Collins, who played Emily in Paris, might be facing an axe at some point after those excruciating Emily in Paris episodes, that was enough to get me into the theater.
Talk to me about the Axel Foley movie. I'm curious about this Beverly Hills Cop thing. Well, you're going to get to this?
All right. Now, dude, if you wanted to woo a former lover, right, you might start with an invitation to an intimate dinner. And then that tete-a-tete would certainly be enhanced by playing a little music on the sound system, songs associated with your relationship from back in the day to sort of sweeten up your target. Am I right?
Okay.
So Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F., the fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie, makes very sure to lean in on Harold Faltermeyer's sprightly Axel F. theme, that little synth pop thing that everybody loved, and also blatantly tosses in Glenn Frey's The Heat Is On and the Pointer Sisters' Neutron Dance, all familiar needle drops from earlier Beverly Hills Cop movies, starting with the 1984 one that began back in the day. And are we hedging our bets? I would say so. Nostalgia, escapism, and commercial expedience, those are all reasons for doing a fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie so late in the game. And this is, decades after that weak third one in the franchise, which took a little luster off what I thought were two really, really good ones. I loved the first Beverly Hills Cop film. And again, talk about hedging your bets. They bring back a lot of the actors from the first three films to make sure you're really in love with this thing. So these are movies about inner city Detroit cop Axel Foley, played by Eddie Murphy, now a little stockier, but definitely a better actor. And Foley is tossed into the upscale glamour of Beverly Hills in these movies, where he has to fight a more high-end but no less vile version of criminal activity than he faced in Detroit. And now he's back at work in his hometown as a detective on the Detroit police force. He's still wearing that Detroit Lions jacket from the other movies. He's now, though, estranged from his daughter, who was an L.A. lawyer, until Billy, his old partner on the Beverly Hills police force, goes missing on a case. Yeah, like I said, Billy is again played by Judge Reinhold. The Beverly Hills police force captain is again played by John Ashton, and so on. But there is new blood as Foley teams up with a new partner played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt and teams with his daughter played by Taylor Page to rescue Billy and bring down a drug ring. And guess what? It's Kevin Bacon week. Kevin Bacon is back here as an internal affairs cop. You just can't get enough of Kevin Bacon sizzling on the screen as usual. Anyway, this movie is on Netflix, and it is pretty much by the numbers. If you like the other movies, the makers of this film, which include a director, Mark Malloy, and a team of screenwriters, they figure you're going to like this. They pull out, it's like playing the old hits. It's like going to see the Rolling Stones, and you're waiting to hear, Jumpin' Jack Flash, and I Can't Get No Satisfaction. I got mild satisfaction from Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. It's on Netflix. I thought it was maybe better than Bad Boys 4, but boy, that is damning with faint praise.
Wow. So you didn't love it. You kind of just sort of were in reluctant like with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, they brought back Bronson Pinchot as Surge. Paul Reiser's here as Axel's old partner. I mean, again, talk about hedging bets. And honestly, I wasn't offended by it. I just thought it was, product. My preface earlier was to point out why these movies are made. I thought it was very valid to go into that earlier on.
Yeah, no, that's right. I was going to say, see your little treatise that you did at the beginning of the segment about the fact that it's just crass commercialism, which is making the decisions in Hollywood and directing creative projects. All right. we're what else do you have? We're running
I'll
a
tell
little
you
behind.
quickly. I won't get into any great depth, but Mother, Couch. Mother Couch is a very ambitious movie that sort of falls flat despite the presence of Ewan McGregor and also Reese Ifans as two brothers, and Lara Flynn Boyle as their sister, all estranged from one another and dealing with a very bulky elderly mother played by Ellen Burstyn. It starts in a furniture store in some kind of desolate area of some suburban town. And Mom, played by Burstyn, plops herself down on a couch in this furniture store that's about to close and refuses to get up. And this movie spins out from this. And over the course of the film, family secrets are revealed. People go head to head. There's arguments. There are sleepovers in this large and sprawling furniture store that is on the verge of closing. And by the way, is run by a pair of elderly twins played by F. Murray Abram. So we have, like, again, hotshot cast here, and it's an ambitious movie written and directed by Nicholas Larson, and it just didn't quite work for me. It's almost like magical surrealism, some of the things that go down here, and it just kind of plods forward. I will say that young Taylor Russell, who was in the movie Bones and all and played Judy Robinson in the Lost in Space series on Netflix, is quite good as the daughter of one of the twins. And everybody kind of tries to bring their A game. And I say try because they're dealing with such a strange and bizarre movie. It's just bizarre.
Oh, wow. It's kind of, I was kind of getting excited about it till you sort of said it kind of just misses.
It's in select theaters. It might be something worth watching when it's available for streaming, but mostly because the performances, despite how weird this script is and how unsatisfying the whole project ends up being, the performances are quite good. So there you go.
I think as you speak about it, I think of that movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is also kind of had a weirdness and surreality about it, or surrealism.
Yeah, absolutely. But that dazzled, while this one sort of is a little on the flat side.
I see. Okay. Mother Couch, it's called. That's Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
And Laura Flynn Boyle's in it, along with F. Murray Abraham. Man, somehow it misses.
Yeah,
according to Michael.
Ellen Burstyn is mom.
Oh, yeah, Ellen Burstyn. That's right, as the mother, right?
She's horrifying. She's more horrifying than anything in Maxine, I think. No,
I'd love to, just to see her work, I think is great. But it sounds like it's one you wait for the streaming if you want to check it out. Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. It's a nostalgic romp. But Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, says it's really more commercialism and dusting off the old commercial elements that worked in Beverly Hills Cop and then bringing them together with some new people associated with this project besides Eddie Murphy, that is. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Michael was saying, plays his partner. You got Taylor Page and Judge Reinhold and John Ashton and Paul Reiser and Bronson Pinchot and Kevin Bacon, who appears again in another film that Michael reviewed. But he says, look, it just feels like a ride through commercialism. Not awful, just not really, as a creative project, a ton there. Maxine is the one that Michael suggests is the third of Ty West's horror trilogy. It's the sequel to X. She is a porn star who wanted to make it big in Hollywood, this Maxine Minx. Mia Goth is the star. Elizabeth Debicki is in the movie.
She's the director. She's the director who hires Maxine and is going to give Maxine a legit career.
Oh. Michelle Monaghan is in the film as a detective alongside Bobby Cannavale. And Lily Collins is in it along with Giancarlo Esposito. I mean, it's really got a lot of people. And, of course, Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon is the best thing about both of the movies he's in this week. I was like, yeah, Kevin, we love you.
He's a talented guy. Yeah. And then we started with, so on Maxine, Michael liked it. He actually thought, and I think liked it is sort of the way I would term the way you responded, which is you felt it was an okay sequel, not the best in the series, but it wasn't bad, wasn't as funny, you said, as that perhaps that they felt it would likely be, but notwithstanding that, you really enjoyed it. You did say that you should see the other two before seeing this third one, is the point.
I think so. It is the least of the three, but I don't want to let that damn it. I really enjoyed watching it. I mean, Mia Goth, everything I've seen her in, I've been like riveted to the screen. She's really something else.
I really wanted to see this movie, but Michael said, well, you didn't see the first two, dude, so you're really out of the game. So, all right.
If you don't mind a little blood and gore, Mark, you could probably watch it. I don't know that it's so necessary. It's not like, you going to see part 2 of the Avengers Infinity Wars after not seeing part 1. That would have been, God, that would have been a sin.
That would have been, right, that would have been malpractice, entertainment malpractice in your view.
Yeah.
All right. And we started with Despicable Me 4. And Michael says, it's hard to imagine that they could mine the Despicable Me franchise too much until you see Despicable Me 4, apparently, which pretty much points up, despite great cast and brilliant visuals, it's just not there. And Despicable Me 4 is a pass from the Culture Blaster.
The best thing we could do with the Minions is maybe use them for target practice. That's about the only thing I can say.
How dare you speak of them that way. Find Michael in The Voice of San Francisco. He writes there quite wonderfully. His reflections can be found, and the voicesf.org is the website. thevoicesf.org is the website. Look for Michael Snyder by name. thevoicesf.org. And he is known as the Culture Blaster across social media, and his Instagram is Mike the Knife 123, and where he has some fireworks that he photographs. So, I mean, that's everything, Michael. I've given you all the plugs. I've given you all the good wishes. I've given you a warm welcome. I'm utterly enthralled by the job you've done today. And, yes, and it's time to say farewell. Bye-bye, Michael.
Everyone, go Giants. See you next week.
Bye-bye, Culture Blaster. Bye-bye.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know, Kim. I know it's late, and there was a little breaking news during the time that we were with Michael. I'll get to that in a second. $7 super chat. Happy Independence weekend after 3 weeks. Finally test negative for COVID. All right, Cindy, bravo. Nice to have you back in the land of COVID negative. And Brian Reich, Harris Whitmer is my choice for an exciting Democratic ticket. Whitmer's a senator from Michigan, would carry that swing state, and I believe this country would rally for the 2 women ticket, and they are young. Brian, that's not a bad take at all. You're up against, thank you, by the way, for the super chat. You're up against the Democratic machine, I think, a little bit on that, and you're certainly up against a war chest that would go to Kamala Harris. Tom SSS, I may have to start this music again.
Oh, no.
I didn't know we were sitting on all of this. Tom S. Let me just get this up where I can see it.
SSS, triple S's. Woohoo!
Tom triple S's, thank you for the shout. Why not have autonomous police department to police the autonomous cars?
That's nice.
Now you're thinking. Well done. Big shout out to all of you. Thank you for supporting the show and for some good takes, actually. Donald Trump is pressuring the Florida judge, Eileen Cannon, who is his girlfriend, as you know, to actually dismiss the document charges. Isn't it more or less that, based on presidential immunity, right, Kim?
Yeah, Trump wants Cannon to consider the question of immunity when it comes to that documents case.
There's no ask too big for Donald Trump, apparently. Everybody have a safe weekend. We're back here on Monday with more.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We'll break down the Biden conversation. Gary Dietrich will be here.
Bye-bye.
True Crime Corner with Courtney. All of that on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Till then, bye-bye.